With us today. Brendan and Dan from Easycare are with us, and they're going to talk about the Easy Shoe Versa line.
Please be sure to put any questions that you have for them in those comments. At the end of this segment, we are going to choose 2 lucky winners, and each winner is going to get their choice of 1 pair of Versa glue or the Versa Octo, which we will be talking about today. Also, we wanted to mention a little promotion we have going on right now.
Yes.
I'll try not to mix this up. Here we go. Limit 1 deal per customer, but for a limited time until February 21st. If you buy 1, you can get 1 50% off of the Versas. So be sure to take advantage of that while you can.
That's it. One-time offer. 1 time per customer.
So with that,
take advantage of that.
Brendan and Dan, you now have the floor.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for having us. We appreciate being back here again. So I'll give a real brief introduction. I'm Brendan Colto, Director of Sales for Easycare. With us, we have Dan Schroeder, who is a sales representative and has been a farrier for over 14 years. So Dan has a lot of knowledge when it comes to applications. So I'm going to go through products, kind of history, things like that. And then certainly when we get into application and talking about ways to use them, ways to remove them, apply them, things like that, Dan will be a great resource for that. And we will have him answer a lot of those questions. So without further ado, we'll get started. The first thing I do for those who are new to Easycare, who don't quite know who we are the leader in hoof care, hoof protection. For over 50 years. We were primarily a boot company in the early days. And now we've transitioned into shoes. So I'll give you kind of a brief history on that. The owner of our company, the company is family owned and privately held. It's Garrett Ford. Garrett is integral in all the developments of all these products. So from the beginning of the concept to the testing phase to tweaking, making changes, ultimately then deciding whether or not a product has merit, and if it's operating like it should. Garrett's involved in all those. And we also use a lot of HCPs or hoof care professionals, and end users will allow them to test products and then give us their feedback so that we can tweak things and make sure that we ensure that when we deliver a product, when we put a product out, that it has been well tested and proven. So the Easycare holds probably the most patents when it comes to hoof care protection, things like that. We are constantly innovating. That's actually part of our mission, is to actually help, to improve the well-being of horses through innovation. So that's what we do. So want to talk about our shoe line, the Easy Shoe, but also more primarily the Easy Shoe Versa line that we have. So Easycare has been doing shoes in some form or fashion for well over 10, 15 years. Primarily, it was a glue-on type applications that we did. Some people who are familiar with Easycare might know that we've had, glue-on shells. We've had other glue-on shoes, different styles that we've done throughout the years. And they've done very, very well, and have worked well for different applications. But as we moved forward and as things changed, we worked on developing a shoe that could be used. Oftentimes there are horses that need to have a shoe that can be nailed on, or that requires a little more rigidity, or might need some steel inside. Of course, that doesn't mean that you have to just use steel. It means we need to find a way to improve that concept. And so what we did was we came out with urethane composite shoes, which were able to be nailed on, that gave the, like I said, rigidity of a steel shoe, but also had the concussion support of urethane. And so with that, in the early days, we typically had one pattern of shoe that we had, and usually came in 5 or 6 different sizes. What we did with the newest line is we actually developed a front and a hind pattern for the shoe line here. And then within that, in that line, we did 18 sizes of front and 18 sizes of hind shoes. So it gave you a lot more options, different styles of feet, different shapes of feet that you could accommodate. One of the important parts about Dan showing there, the difference in the showing from the 102 up to the 170 shows the range of size that we currently have. One of the things also that was important with this was not just, was to come out with a product that was easy to use, that was very adaptable, that you could change, that you could adjust. So with the urethane comes a lot of benefits. Besides the concussion support, you also are able to go in and you can adjust breakover. You can adjust the length by cutting it out or grinding out parts here. You can work on leverage reduction by grinding it down further on one side or the other. We have integrated clips here that allow you to either use those or take those off. So that was just a real quick overview of the nail-on shoes that came out, which were the Versa Grip. And there are currently 4 styles of those. We have a grip gold, a grip light, and a grip with studs. So the next part that we decided to do was to figure out, some people, wanted these type of shoes, but wanted to be able to glue them on. So the next process that we did was we actually found out that we could do, or worked with, was taking a product like our Versa Light, which doesn't have any metal inside, and allowed you to heat weld tabs onto the shoe, which allowed you to glue the shoe onto the hoof. That also can be done with our steel insert shoes. You can apply the tabs to that as well. And so you can use these different types of shoes for the horse. With that, after we did the tab system, and this is actually a system that's applied with super glue, and we'll talk about that further here in a minute. The next generation, or next thought was, how can we make gluing easier? So that's one of the things with current styles of gluing that have been out there is they're not as easy to apply. The prep is rather difficult. It's, you need to be meticulous with your prep work. When you're actually applying the glue, you would put it onto the shoe first, and then you would fit it to the hoof. Needs to stay in place, needs to be able so it doesn't move, takes some curing time, so there's a lot of different things there that can affect the how well it's glued on and how well it actually works. So what we did was we designed a new type of gluing method that could be used with the shoes. And so what we came out with was, let me find the right one here. Is our Versa Glue. So if you notice, it's the same type of shoe as our Versa Light, same urethane, same tread pattern. But what we did was we went ahead and integrated in some different tabs in here. What's important about that is, and I should have mentioned this when we were talking about the different sizes that we have. With the different sizes, there's 4 millimeters of difference between each size. So why that's important is because if one shoe size happens to be just a touch too big, the next size down is going to be pretty close to the correct fit. So when you have that close fit and you have the cuff system here, as you can see here, if this is the hoof here, when you load this onto the hoof and you set it down, if the horse picks up their foot and moves it around, you don't have that shoe moving, adjusting, falling off, things like that. So when you have the proper fit, what that allows you to do is, once again, is to control the movement of that shoe. What else is great about that is in the previous applications, when you would, glue on, you would have to, like I said, put the glue on the shoe itself first and then put it on. With this application here, with the hoof in the shoe loaded on the ground, you can actually take the tips of the glue, and this is designed for acrylic style glues like a Vet Tech Adhere. And with this system here, you can actually put the tips in and fill in the cavity of the tab, which then allows you to, use less glue. It's a cleaner system to put on there. You can then, it cures on top of there. And then you've got a product that will last the entire trim cycle, 6 to 8 weeks, without coming off. So that was our newest innovation. That one came out about middle of last year. It's done extremely well. People that have used it have loved it. It currently, in the sizes, we talked about having size 102 to 170. With the current glue shoe that we have, we're going to do 102 to 150 currently. So that does not mean that you can't go larger if you need to. One of the things we've done is we've made a tab system separate of the shoe itself. So if you wanted to make a larger shoe, you would simply get a Versa Light, Versa Grip Light, say in 154, and then you get a tab, and you would actually heat weld the tab onto here, and you can make your own shoe like that. Same thing goes if you were to remove these, and cut the tabs off. We should mention these are resettable. The durability of these shoes is amazing. We would put these up against any steel shoe as far as longevity, durability. These will outlast a steel shoe when it comes to wear. So therefore you're going to want to use, be able to reset these if you can. And so with those extra tabs, you can actually do that if you need to cut these off, or you can take these off and clean out the glue. It's just a more meticulous, kind of a harder way to do that, but you can do it if you want to reuse the shoes. So that's the Versa Grip glue that we currently have. Are there any questions on that one? Or Dan, did I miss anything with regard to the glue before we move on to any other accessories or the other style shoes?
No, I think one question that we get a lot is we'll get, somebody will buy a 126 Versa Light, and they'll buy a 126 Versa glue, and they'll say, I don't think these are sized right, because the 26 Versa Light is wider than the Versa glue. What you need to remember is that this shoe, the Versa glue, already has the tabs applied. So if you add the tabs to a Versa Light, then it will be the same size. And if you're going to reset these, and let's say a pair of the Versa glues, if you're going to reset these and you cut the tabs off before you heat weld a new pair of tabs on, you do need to take into consideration that you need to cut down this edge here some. Because if you take this shoe, a 126, cut the tab off, and then add another one, you've just increased the size of this shoe. So it's not just a matter of just cutting the top part off and welding a new pair on. You do need to make a compensation on the edge of the shoe for welding those. That's just a question we get quite a bit. Well, I welded them on and now they don't fit. Yeah, and that's why.
Okay.
We do have a couple of questions for
Sure.
you.
Yep.
In the removal process or reapplication process, will they thin the hoof at all, like removing the glue?
Dan?
Shouldn't. When you take the shoe off, any glue that's left on the hoof wall, you'll just use a Buffy system or your rasp to remove the excess or the leftover glue. And no, not unless you get a little crazy in your glue removal process, it won't thin the hoof wall.
This person said that their mare already has thin hoof walls, so they were questioning the removing and reapplying process if it would thin the walls even more.
No.
And they also ask how long they would last over very hard, rocky ground.
So as far as the hard, rocky ground, they're going to last. So for example, we're going to talk about this shoe next, but it's the same principle. It's the same type of shoe. It's just a different application, same sole. But these shoes that we're talking about here, when I say that the urethane is extremely durable, we're winning 50 and 100-mile endurance races over some of the hardest ground that there is consistently. So it's been doing very well. We had somebody out in California. We talked about how we oftentimes use end users as to test our products. The next product we're going to talk about is the Versa Grip Octo. That product, when we sent it out in testing, once again, same urethane bottom, same tread pattern, all the thing that we have with our Versa line. It was used in the testing phase in those 50 and 100-mile endurance races, and they won the races, and the shoes were able to be reset. They used the same shoe for multiple races, so it's the durability is there. So
yeah, we've even got some dealers that are Amish that put these on their road horses, and they're getting, typically they're getting one reset on their road horses. I've got another dealer in Southern Arizona where it's super, super rocky and just like going on concrete. And he tells us all the time that he gets better wear out of these than he does when he nails steel shoes on. So not a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we just had a few questions about the removal. How do you get the shoe off with the tabs glued on?
Sure. Dan, you want to take that?
Okay. Let me get my model out here. So as this shoe is on, the best way that I have found and that I've heard is use a putty knife or any farriers. There's what we call a clinch cutter, but something with an edge to get underneath, get through the glue and you'll cut into the glue. Don't cut into the foot or the tab. But once you get this tab worked up, a piece of it, you could use a pair of pliers, you could use a pair of nippers. And once you get underneath there, you can just slowly peel it and kind of work from the front to the back, or, if you start in the back to front, and just peel a little bit at a time and they'll pop off. Yeah.
Okay. Any more, or should we move on?
No more questions right
Okay.
now.
So, and we're going to talk about some accessories as well, but I'll finish up by talking about the newest model shoe that we have, and then the accessories we talk about can be applied to all the different models. So we just launched at the end of 2022, right in December there, we launched a new product called the Versa Grip Octo. So before we were talking about when we originally did this, we had a Versa Light, and then you would heat weld the tabs on here to make your shoe that you would apply with super glue. What we found is, people who were doing it were very successful, but it's another step in the process. So what we went ahead and did was we went ahead and applied the tabs ahead of time so that the user doesn't have to do the heat welding on those. Talking about size wise, the Octos are going to be available in a 102 to a 150. Currently in stock are 114 to 138, with the remainder of those coming the end of the month. And so I've mentioned, 102, to 150 or 170. That is simply the measurement process that we use. So people who are used to shoes, ones, twos, things like that, there's not a correlation between our sizing and, say, a steel shoe. In reality, there's not a correlation between the steel manufacturers on an OT. Each manufacturer is going to be slightly different depending upon their model. So with these, it's very simple. When we call a product or a shoe a 102 or a 130, that's simply the millimeter measurement across the widest part of the shoe. So, and maybe Dan can talk about that. But so what you're going to do when you're talking about sizing these products are you're going to trim your hoof to the desired length. Either have your farrier do it, or if you do it, that's fine. And then once you have them trimmed up in the manner in which you like, then you're going to go ahead and measure that hoof across the widest part of the hoof in millimeters. And that's going to get you your closest. So like I said, every shoe is 4 millimeters apart. Each size is is 4 millimeters apart. So once again, if your hoof should measure, 123, you're not going to want to go with a 122 on those. You're going to go with the 126, and then you're going to adjust those. And we can talk about that as well after we've discussed the product on how you can adjust these and what you can do to make these fit. So back to the Versa Octo, like I said, brand new for us, just came out. This already has the integrated tabs in there. And so once again, same type of function. Once you put it on the hoof, if you get the right fit, it's very easy to apply. So one of the things to note is with the Versa glue, once again, we were talking about acrylic glues and that application process. With the tab system, 11-finger tab system, or the Octos like this, we're talking about using an application of super glue. And so Where this is really the game changer is one of the things that's always been a challenge or has been one of the barriers to people who have been using glue-on shoes is the economics of it. So if you were to take a tube of Vet Tech Adhere, currently right now, I think it's selling on Value Vet for $33.95. So when you apply that, the cost per hoof, I mean, it could be anywhere from $6 to $12, depending upon how much you use, what type of shoe you're using, all those type of things. So that's an additional cost. Whereas with super glue, you're going to be able to apply one shoe anywhere from 50 cents to $1 worth of glue. So that right there, the economics make it much more affordable for people to be able to glue shoes on. One of the things to note though about the gluing is I'm sure somebody would say, well, why would I use, the Versa glue versus the Octo? One, it could be personal preference. Two, it could be the type of hoof that you're working with, depending upon if there was some damage to the hoof, if there were gaps in the hoof, if it wasn't as healthy maybe, or that you just decide you want to use that type of glue, the acrylic will allow to fill in some of the gaps that you have there and get a good bond that way. If you have really smooth, good hooves on that that are fairly uniform that way, the super glue works phenomenally well because you have a good bond with that. So just things to consider when you're considering which way to go. And once again, some people just prefer acrylics over super glue or super glue over acrylic. So with this application process, we talked about, you're going to prep your hoof on there. You're going to get it clean. You're going to get it dry. You're going to find the right fit for the shoe. Once you've made your adjustments and you get the shoe put on, once again, with the hoof loaded, on the shoe and set down, you can there's different ways to apply it. You can apply the glue all at one time ahead of time and then just slide it on like a slipper and set it down. Or if it's already there and they're standing and you want to pull back each tab and apply the glue to each tab, you can do that. Once you've done that, you're just going to take cellophane or a shrink wrap type situation here where you're going to wrap the hoof and then set it there, and it's going to cure from 5 to 10 minutes. It depends upon the weather and things like that. But once it's cured, you're going to cut the plastic wrap off and you're going to be ready to go with this shoe. And once again, it's going to stay on for the full trim cycle. It is resettable. So that's kind of a little bit about the Versa Octo. So any questions there before we move on to accessories and other things we've done to improve this line?
Charlene had asked, do you still have to change them like a shoe?
Well, yes. So it's going to be reset. So if you were on a 6 or 8 week reset cycle, that's what you're going to do. The same thing with these. So you're going to treat them the same way, whether that's a nail on or a glue on.
And with the glue-ons, I can't stress enough how important in the process it is before you glue that product on, and no matter which glue you're using, is to get that foot clean and dry. The glue will stick to any moisture in the foot before it sticks to the foot. Typically, if someone glues a shoe on and it comes off within a week, 2 to 3 weeks, your prep work wasn't quite right. And I mean, everybody knows what clean is, but dry, that's the sort of thing running a torch around your foot and wire brushing to get the surface moisture off is extremely important to the success of a glue-on shoe.
Yep, exactly.
Lori had a question. Do these have good grip on snow and ice?
They do. They have excellent grip, and that's why we call them the Versa Grip. If you feel like you need additional, traction, we do sell a quick studs that actually can be applied. Dan's showing a situation there where we took the studs and put them in the toe of there. You put them in the hinds. So we do have those that you can put in there if you need those. If you're going to be on ice, riding on ice or riding on snow that way. But as far as in general, the grip is phenomenal on these. On
snow and ice without the studs, they can be kind of slippery, just like any kind of a shoe. But I can tell you, now this is our Versa stud shoe. It comes with holes in the back where you can put in different styles of studs. But using the quick studs here, I don't know if you can, let me see.
Now go up. There you go.
Obviously stick out maybe.
Those come down.
Yeah.
We've got dealers in Alaska that are on snow and ice for probably close to 6 months of the year, and these shoes with the quick studs, they get along fantastic with them.
Yep. Okay. All right.
That's all the
Any more?
questions for now.
Okay. So now the next area I'll go into is to talk about what I would call accessories or things you can do. So we talk about the Versa line as being the most versatile product out there. We talked about how you can make adjustments to breakover. You can grind out the back. You have options on leverage reduction. You have different things you can do there. But what we decided to do was also find some other accessories that actually could be used, and so that would help out certain horses in certain cases and scenarios. So we've all known horses that could use a wedge pad in an application. And so when you're using glue-ons and you still need to have the option for a wedge pad, what we've come out with is a 2.5 degree wedge pad that we have on there. And so that simply they're size specific. So once you put those on, let me find the ones here. So once that's slid on there and put inside, it actually goes down, and then you actually apply it with 3 screws here, and that's what applies your wedge there. The other thing you can do with these is you can take these and you can stack them. So if you needed to go up to, say, a 5 degree, you can stack those and once again still apply those to get your height that way. So those come in pairs. Once again, they are size specific and they're also pattern specific. So in the wedges, we have front and hind options on there. So basically, to make it very clear, if you have a 130 front shoe, you need a 130 front wedge. So that's one of the accessories we've come out with. And then the next accessory has been very, very exciting and well received by a lot of people. It's what we call our rocker. So as you can see, kind of the way it goes here, these, once again, are size specific. But once you do that, you simply, in the tread patterns of the shoe, and Dan's showing you there what it looks like when you get them on there, which is much better than the clear ones that I have. But basically, it allows that to go on, and then you simply screw that into the bottom of the shoe. What that's going to allow you to do, which is great, is that once you've applied the shoe, the glue shoe, you can actually have the horse walk away, come back. The farrier or you can evaluate the horse and see how they're walking. And if you think, you know what, I think they need some mechanics built into the shoe, you can take this rocker, you can apply it to the bottom, you can screw it on and, put 1 or 2 screws just to hold it temporarily and let the horse walk again. And then you can come back and you can take it off this portion here. You can grind it, you can adjust it, you can do what you need to do to it, put it back on, let them walk again, see how you're getting. If you're getting closer, make a few more adjustments. And then finally, once you get it to where you want, you can actually apply that, permanently with the screws. What's great about that is throughout the cycle, if you need to evaluate again, you think, you know what, they're getting better, or maybe a couple shoeing cycles down the road, you decide they don't need the wedge, you can simply take it off, the rocker, you can take it off and you still have your shoe on. You didn't have to remove the shoe, put it back on, take it off, put it back on. So that's a really neat option that we've come up with as well. So, and then I'll go through the last one that we have, accessory that we just came out with end of last year. And it's a simple product, but it's a great product. It's just called the plug. And so the Versa plug. And so what this is, once again, size and style specific as far as size and, hind or front pattern, but it's simply a product that can be put into the bottom of the shoe. What that was, designed for is, for ice, snow, things like that, where you're concerned about balling up inside the shoe there. You can simply just screw in to the sides there. You can glue these in. You can heat weld these in as well. We have a lot of people who are screwing them in just because they may want to remove them. Say, for example, they're treating a situation with a hoof. They want to be able to get access to it. They can just take it out, unscrew it, treat it, put it back in afterwards. The other thing that's nice is you're not going to wear out the plug like you're going to wear out the tread of the shoe. So if you have a horse that you constantly want one of these in, you reset them, you get a new shoe, pull the plug, you can put it back in there until you need to get a new one. So those are three accessories that have been really well received with regard to these products. And once again, they can be used, across the board, from the nail-on options to the different glue-on options. We can use all of those accessories. So.
Chris asked, are these the products that you are demoing like at K-State?
They are. Yep. Yep. We did those. Yep. And that was primarily, I think we did the glue at K-State, but we also did welded tabs.
We did the Octo also. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So all those sure was. So, any other questions? I'm trying to look over my notes to make sure we covered. We do have additional products coming out. Garrett is constantly, if you guys want to follow Garrett Ford's Facebook or follow Easycare's Facebook, there's always new products that are coming out. And, I know there's several slotted for this year, I think still we're hoping. And of course, Valley Vet's such a great partner. We know that they're going to pick up the ones that we actually develop. So, but if there's any questions on applications or things like that, Dan was showing some of our colored options there. You might show those, Dan, again, what some people have done with the shoes.
Yeah, that's probably the most popular, of all the fantastic innovations in these shoes to the horse. I think we get probably the biggest reaction because people go, "Whoa, wait a minute! You can color those?" Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can color if you got that patriotic streak. You can go with the red, white, and blue way. That's just used, and we do have that on our social media channels. How to do it, but it's a RIT dye, just like you would use for coloring your clothes at home. And following the instructions, dipping the shoe for a couple of minutes, that's now you can make them whatever color you want. And if you're smart enough, there was even one lady made a tie-dye shoe, which was incredible the way she did that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have her on a live video to show us how.
There you go. There you go. And I did see some more questions there regarding pricing.
Mm-hmm.
So a pair of the Versa glues or the Octos, pair of them run $46.95. And once again, those are reusable, resettable on those. So, and depending upon what type of terrain or what type of ground you're working on, whether it be an arena or whether it be trails or grass and different things like that, we're seeing anywhere from 2 to 3 resets. We're seeing more than that as well. So we've just, like I said, phenomenal wear on those. And then somebody else was asking about where these shoes can be used as far as showing. So we have these shoes are being used in all different types of disciplines. We have them on hunter jumpers that are being shown. We have them on dressage horses. We have them on barrel horses. We have them on Western pleasure horses. We have them on, working ranch horses. They're really the applications. We have them on 3-day eventers. We have them, there's just, I don't think we've come across a discipline yet that couldn't use or benefit. There may be some rules with showing, I don't know, but as far as prep work goes and working up to a show, certainly they could be used in any discipline.
Yeah. A little for showing, kind of one of the neat features for these. Anybody showing in Western pleasure, with your slow walk and your trot, if you've got a horse that's greatly running downhill, putting a pair of these on the front end of the horse, at that point, with the wide web of the shoe, it allows that horse to float on top of the arena surface to where, it will make a difference. I've done that on some of my clients. When my wife shows halter horses, we religiously put these on before a halter class because with this floating on top of the arena surface, you can gain an inch, maybe sometimes even an inch and a half in depth on or on your top line measurement. So they do work extremely well for that. I haven't heard of anybody that's having any problems in the show arena about any,
No, we've had really good successes. And once again, if you follow our blog or anything like that, you'll see where a lot of people are using them for different events.
Yeah.
So,
Charlene had asked, if you take them off, can you reuse them?
yeah. So yeah,
Absolutely.
we were talking about, and just and once again, even the super glue application, we talk about that. We talked about, somebody had asked how you take the Versa glue off, and Dan went through that and talked about breaking the bond there and then peeling it back. Very similar with the 11 finger or the octos here. You're simply going to get something there to break the bond at the top there, and you're going to be able to peel those down each side, and then the shoe's going to come off. You're going to clean up your hoof wall, do your trim, and really, you can try to clean up the shoes just a little bit. But we've also, we always talk about prep is important, and we would like people to get things as clean and we talk about as dry as possible on those. But when you're resetting some of those, we've done tests where we've simply taken them off, cleaned up the hoof wall, trimmed them, and then slapped the same pair back on, putting super glue on, just to see if prep work, if for some reason you didn't get exactly perfect, and it's still working extremely well. Prep is still the biggest thing that's going to cause a failure, but we are finding that when you're resetting these, they're doing phenomenally well, 2 and 3 and 4 times. And like I said, if you should damage, a part of a tab here, well, like I said, we sell the separate tabs here. You can simply cut off a tab or two. You can, like Dan said, grind down where you're at to get it back in line, and then you can add in a tab to fix that. If you think you need a tab at the toe, you can add that if you like. I mean, there's once again lots of options that you can do with those.
Yep.
So, all right. So
That's all for questions for now, anyways.
all right. I'm trying to think if there's anything we missed on there.
One thing I will mention, like, Brendan mentioned this, once you put these shoes on, they do stay on very well. Now, that's a great thing, but it can cause a little bit of an issue. If you get the right shoe here, if you put these on, and one of the things that I suggest to everyone when you put these on is this model fits a 122 extremely well. But using, a 126, it'll still fit really well. But you want to be mindful that we're not wanting to put something extra wide to make the footprint of the horse bigger than what it needs to be. So even though this model fits a 122, a 126, you could easily know or look and put a 126 on and go, well, boy, that fits great. Something I will advise you to do is check for, I don't know if this will show up, but if you've got one that's bigger, there will be a lot of flex in here because you're going to have a bigger gap that you're going to have to fill with glue. And one of the other things you can do, it's not going to show up very well, but once it's on the foot, you can look right here and look inside there and see how much gap you have between the cuff and the hoof wall. And if it's an excessive gap, you may want to go down a size to make sure that you're not putting a size too big on. So just something that, when you're sizing and looking to see what's going to fit, something that helps.
I saw another question there at the bottom about Clydesdales.
Yep.
So we talked about the largest size. So Dan, you have the 170 there.
Yep.
Currently, as far as our grip line goes, with the nail-on options and the lights, we go to a 170 on those. So that will fit some smaller drafts, draft crosses, things like that. But as far as true large drafts, we're considering going larger on those. We currently don't have those. We have to make molds for each size. So really we've really concentrated on the sizes that are going to take care of, 95% of the users. But of course, there are certain circumstances where we'd love to be able to help out the larger horses as well. So in the future, we're considering that. and we'll look at that.
And just for a reference, since nobody's really good at well, how big is a 170? This 170, the width is about 6 inches, 6 3/4 inches. So
Yep.
if you've got something bigger than 6 3/4, then we don't have one that size yet.
Yep. Exactly. So, trying to think if there's anything else. I think that covers all of it. If there's not any more questions, but and just as a reminder, like I said, we're running the promotion for the Easy Shoe Versa, where you buy one pair, get a second pair half off. You know, it's one promotion per customer. That goes across the Versa line there. So if you want to try a nail-on shoe, you can do that. If you want to try a glue-on shoe, you can do that. But that's the option. We sure appreciate you guys, and I know we're going to give away 2 pair, I think, at some point.
Yes, we are.
We have to get our confetti here.
Okay.
That's the priority.
Oh, you know what? We did have another question before we get there, so I want to answer this one because we should have gone through this. So, and Dan can help with this, but we're talking about talking about how do you fit the shoe, and that's really very, very important. So one of the things to talk about is one of the things we did with our patterns is we did give it a little extra length in the back. Some horses, some horses need to have that extra support in the back. Some of it you're going to need to cut out. So the best way to do this is one, of course, we talked about trimming them, getting your measurement, and finding a shoe that is close as you can, with going a little bit larger than a little too small. You can't add material, but you can certainly remove it. So once you get it set on, to get the hoof set on there, taking a black magic marker and tracing around the back like Dan's doing there, that will give you your line that you would need to trim to. There's different ways you can trim. You can use a pair of nippers and just cut it off and then rasp it smooth if you'd like. If you happen to have a grinder there, you can grind it off. If you have a belt sander or you have a bench grinder on there, you can just go up there and grind it off, take all that excess material off till you get to the line that you had marked out. So that's the easiest way to shape these on there. Once again, you can take some off the sides. If you don't have any of the metal, you can take a little more off, but if you have metal, you can get to the point there. So what else would you suggest, Dan, with shaping these?
That's the biggest thing. If you put a shoe on and it looks like there's a lot to reshape it, you're probably a size too big. That's the biggest thing with going down, 4 millimeters. Again, here in the US, a lot of people aren't horribly familiar with millimeters, but 4 millimeters, you can take, a 122 and a 126, put them up close to one another, and you can only barely see the difference in width. So, that's the biggest thing is, like Brendan said, once you mark it, like on this one, you've got a little excessive over here. Once you mark it, just grind it off, and you'll be good to go.
Yep.
Sherry had asked about the weight comparison between steel and the Versa.
Dan, you want to answer that one? I mean, there is some difference there, of course.
Yeah, I haven't actually measured 2 of the exact same size, and I think it's going to be very comparable. I think the Versa may edge out a steel shoe by a couple of ounces, but it's not going to be a lot. And honestly, the benefits that you see using one of the Versa shoes compared to a steel shoe far outweigh that couple of ounces that you're going to see.
Yeah. And I think, once again, it also depends on whether or not you choose a shoe that has a steel insert like this one here, or whether, of course, you go with just a light without any steel. So, yeah, definitely. Yep.
Wayne asked if they would happen to hook on something, what would give, the tabs or the hoof wall?
Well,
the tabs will come off.
Yeah. And so that's usually what, and we've talked about, like, if you were welding your own tabs on, usually you can tell if a portion of the shoe should come off. If the shoe came off, then your heat welding wasn't successful. if the tab comes off, then it means your hoof prep probably wasn't there. But if you're talking about,
he's talking if
you just
if you put those on and he gets his foot stuck in the fence or something
Sure.
like that, it'll come off just like a nail shoe. You'll lose your glue bond will break before the hoof wall comes off.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
That is all the questions right now.
All right.
So
Good deal.
All right.
Where's the confetti?
we've got it.
All
And
right.
again, there is a special going on the Easy Shoe Versas. You buy one, you get 50% off. This is from today to the 21st, so go take advantage of that. And it's one per customer. And then we have 2 winners.
Yay. All right. I'm ready.
And they get their choice of the Versa Glue, a pair of those, or a pair of the Versa Octo. So the first winner is Heather Allure.
Yay.
Woo.
Hey,
Congratulations.
And the second winner is Pat Regis.
Woo.
Congratulations.
perfect.
All right. Before you leave us, we have just a few other announcements. First of all, thank you, Brendan, and thank you, Dan, for joining us today and answering all these questions. An awesome presentation. And
Thank you.
thank
Thanks
you,
for
everybody
having
else,
us.
for joining us. And if you have questions, please go ahead and keep putting those in the comments if you need to. We'll get to them.
Yep.
And we will contact these gentlemen to help us answer those for us. So.
And the 2 winners, if you want to go ahead and send us a private message to claim your prize. I see you're both still on here, which is awesome. So go ahead and send us a message and we'll get the information we need. So
All right.
we want to talk about that first.
Yes.
Do that.
Join us again next week. We will be live again with Dr. Tony. He's going to be talking about common cattle health issues and diseases.
And that's on Wednesday. And then we wanted to go over this again before we got off of here. So our sweetheart of a deal is going on until February 13th. And it is savings on apparel and footwear. So you can save up to $20 off $200.
And one more thing, don't go far because we're going to be back today very shortly
Right after this.
because we have some winners to draw for our boot scooting giveaway.
Woo.
And I think that's everything.
We won't even pick up the confetti.
All right.
So-
Thank you, Brendan. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you guys.
Guys,
All right,
appreciate
thank
it.
you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye-bye.